Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice Radio. So today, it's time, ladies and gentlemen, top 10 cards from Pokémon Sun and Moon. Now, I've been doing pretty much daily videos about all of these cards, so I've actually done videos about every card that is in this list today. I'll pop a whole bunch of links in the description, so if you want to find out more about any of these cards, go and watch. I've made dedicated videos about them all. This is about ranking them, so let's go through a few cards that just missed the top 10. Honourable mentions, let's start off with Gumshoes. Yes, I know he looks like a particular prominent celebrity. That's not what I'm terribly worried about. There are two things I like about Gumshoes. He's got an ability that just allows you to look at your opponent's hand once per turn. That is absolutely vital for getting information. And for one colourless energy, his GX attack does 10 damage plus 50 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Either they do attach loads of energy and you get a nice easy one-hit KO, or they don't attack loads of energy and you get to sit there and look at your opponent's hand and scare them away from putting lots of energy in play, and all you're doing is just sitting on the bench. Nice tech, not good enough. A card which I had to cut from the list, unfortunately, is Lily. I like Lily. Draw until you've got 6 cards in your hand. If it's turn 1, draw until you've got 8. The reason this doesn't make the list is like I laid out in my video a little while ago. You really want to be playing 4 of these so you can have it on turn 1, and you really want to be playing 1 of these so you can reuse it with Versus Seeker as and when you need to. I don't really know the count for this. I don't think it's good enough. It can't make the list. Now, 2 cards which very almost made the list, but I'm afraid had to fall a little bit short: Lunala and Solgaleo. Now, the thing that puts them off, and spoiler alert, although I'm sure you all already know this by now, skip forward 5 seconds if you don't, they're stage 2s. That really, really hurts. They've both got really good abilities. Solgaleo acts as a switch. Lunala allows you to move all your psychic energy around. Lunala's GX attack allows you to just get an easy one-hit KO on any basic on the field. Well, your opponent's side of the field, as long as it's not a basic GX, of course, but the cost of free Psychic is a little bit of a pain. Solgaleo's got a really nice attack for a single energy, his GX, that allowed you to just grab 5 energy out and attach them any way you like, and an attack that does 230 as long as you discard all the energy attached to him. Something to think about in Expanded with Bronzong. I don't think either of them are quite good enough. And the last honourable mention is a card that personally I really want to put in this list, but I think he's more of a pet project than a top 10 card: Incineroar GX. What I'm really looking at here is the first attack. 10 damage plus 20 more for each fire Pokemon in play. Skyfield, 8 bench fire Pokemon, 170 for a single energy, and then you can just use Max Potion to discard the single energy, fully heal, and keep going. Good damage for a single energy, 250 HP, and the ability to abuse Max Potion. There is a lot to like about Incineroar GX, but he doesn't quite make the top 10. So going into the top 10 as a whole, I have 2 things to say. Number 1, I am very confident about this list. I think I've identified the top 10, well, technically 12, but you'll have to forgive me, cards in the Pokémon Sun and Moon expansion. I am not confident about the order. I think you could happily mix this up any way you like. And bearing in mind that I've been doing all the videos about all of these cards, the fact that I cannot sort out the list and be really happy about it shows you quite how good this set is. So coming in at number 10, Professor Kukui. It's not particularly good at the moment, but I think it will get better and better as time goes by. Draw 2 cards, do an extra 20 damage. It's like both parts of Giovanni's scheme. Giovanni's scheme's not seen a huge amount of play. I like Kukui, but I don't think it's an amazing every deck card. It comes in at number 10. At number 9, a card which will almost certainly be higher up on this list if we do it in a year or two's time, Alolan Muck. It blocks abilities from basic Pokemon. However, at the moment we've got Garbodor that with a tool attached blocks abilities from any Pokemon. Now, it is quite fun with something like Alolan Muck. You can use your Decidueye's ability whilst blocking abilities on stuff like Shaman, for instance, but I just don't think Muck is going to see a lot of play at the moment. I think in the future it might see a lot more play. It deserves to be on the top 10 list. Maybe it should be higher. At the moment, I'm sticking it at number 9. At number 8, Shiinotic. Now, this is a pre-release promo. It is a very good card. It's the ability here, Luminescence. Once during your turn, search your deck for a grass Pokemon. If you're playing decks like Vespiquen, Lurantis, Decidueye, Vileplume, you are going to want to have one or two of these. Don't forget Forest of Giant Plants allows it to evolve up whenever you like, and it just adds consistency to your deck. It is useless in any deck that isn't a grass deck, and you don't have to play it in grass decks, which is why it only gets up to number 8. But make no mistake about it, this is pretty gosh darn good. Coming in at number 7, this is my first of 2 little cheats on this list. We have got Nest Ball. The Pokeball allows you to search for any basic Pokemon and put it straight onto your bench, i.e. don't use it to grab something like Shaman or Hooper, because it goes straight onto your bench and you can't use the coming into play ability. And Timer Ball, that allows you to flip 2 coins, and for every heads you hit, you get to search for an evolution Pokemon and put it into your hand. Brilliant for evolution decks like Decidueye, like Incineroar, etc, etc. Big fan of both of these cards. I don't think they're as good as Ultra Ball. I don't think they are going to replace Ultra Ball, but I do think they will both see a little bit of play as 1 or 2 ofs in decks that are basic or evolution focused. The fact that they both serve essentially the same purpose, just one for basics and one for Timer Ball, means I feel comfortable lumping them together at number 7. At number 6, and I've just changed around 5 and 6 on the fly while I record this, I told you I wasn't 100% on the order, we have got PAssimian, another one of the pre-release promos. I am a huge fan of PAssimian. It is one of my personal favourite cards in the set. It is one of the first decks I am going to make, and I will do a video on this very shortly. Think the next few days. Here, we're really looking at team play. For a double colourless energy, 10 damage, plus 30 times the number of PAssimian on your bench. Now, being a basic, you can use Max Elixir to get the energy on faster. You can use Fighting Fury Bout to up his HP and do an extra 10 damage. Don't forget you can use double colourless to pay the attack cost. And of course, you could use Mew from Fates Collide here, have 4 PAssimian on the bench, and actually be doing 130 for a double colourless energy. This is really good, ladies and gentlemen. Very good damage, and kind of like I said with Incineroar, you could even use something like Max Potion here, although don't forget to use Special Charge to recover all of your double colourless back into your deck. You can do really good damage for 1 or 2 energy attachments. He's a basic Pokemon. Oh yeah, and he's a fighting type, so you'll notice that quite a few of the cards on this list are weak to fighting. That gives PAssimian a distinct edge. Oh yeah, and you get to use strong energy to do extra damage as well. There are so many things I like about this card. He only comes in at number 6 because he's got to be his own deck and just doesn't have quite the power or adaptability that some of the other cards have. In at number 5, a card that has a lot of adaptability, and the only Japanese GX I've currently drawn from a pack, nice little tidbit for you, Tauros GX, or as I like to call him, possibly the best tech coming out of Pokémon Sun and Moon. Here I'm really looking at Mad Bull GX. 30 damage, this is your GX, so it's your only GX attack of the game, for a double colourless energy. 30 damage for every damage counter on Tauros. Your opponent hits you for 70, you're currently hitting for 210. Now, he does have Rage, which is the same, except instead of 30 times the amount of damage counters, it's 20 plus 10 times the amount of damage counters, which is nowhere near as good. Here, I'm thinking Ninja Boy. You're using a basic Pokemon, your opponent puts a whole bunch of damage on it, you Ninja Boy into Tauros and pick up a big KO at a key moment in the game. That's what Tauros is good for, that's why he gets in at number 5. At number 4, and I think some of you might disagree with him being as low as he is, we have Decidueye GX. I love Decidueye GX. I've done a video about Decidueye. I have done a video about what I consider to be one of the best expanded decks going forward, Decidueye Seismitoad. Decidueye is a grass Pokemon, so you can use Forest of Giant Plants to evolve him up whenever you like, and really here it's the ability Feather Arrow. Once during your turn, put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. I cannot stress quite how good this Decidueye GX could be. 3 of these on your bench means you get to spread 60 damage around your opponent's side of the field before you've even attacked. Honestly, ladies and gentlemen, you could wreck decks with this. Now, he does need a partner. He doesn't exist on his own. That's why he's a little bit further down the list. But I would not be mad at you if you put Decidueye GX as the number 1 card coming out of Pokemon Sun and Moon. The top 4 here, I am really iffy on the order. Seriously, I cannot work out the best order, and it's starting to stress me out a little bit. In at number 3, Oranguru. This is another one of the pre-release promos, so shout out to Pokemon for getting 3 of the top 10 cards put in as pre-release promos, and a moment of sympathy for anyone that accidentally draws a Bruxish as their pre-release promo. I have done a video ranking the pre-release promos. Check that one out as well. I've been going a bit crazy with the Sun and Moon videos, and I love it. Oranguru, there's 2 good things about this. Firstly, we've got the attack. The attack is something that I am adoring. 3 colourless energy. He's a basic, so max elixir. He's colourless, so double colourless energy. And don't forget Fighting Fury Bout to put him up to 160 HP. 60 damage, plus 20 times the number of energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. They've got 2 energy on, you do 100, they've got 3 energy on, you do 120, etc. But the fact you can use Max Elixir and double colourless, the fact that you can use Fighting Fury Belt, he is a very good attacker. And that's not the best thing about him. The best thing about him is the ability Instruct. Shout out again to Pokemon for using the name of the ability like his signature ability in the game. That makes me happy. Draw until you got 3 cards in your hand. Now I know sometimes you'll have more than 3 cards, but you get a couple of Oranguru on your bench and you're probably drawing 2 to 4 extra cards per turn. He will, especially when Shaman rotates and we're struggling for consistency, he will become much, much better. He's decent as an attacker and is splashable into any deck, but his ability is amazing. And honestly, ladies and gentlemen, I think there could come a time when people look back on this video I've just made here and go, how did he not have Oranguru number 1? What an idiot. Coming in at number 2, and I actually had this as number 1 on the list I'm looking at while I record, I've bumped it down to number 2, Lurantis GX. Now there's a few good things about Lurantis, but really here, we're looking at the first attack. 1 grass energy, 40 damage, attach 2 basic energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way that you like. Any energy, as long as it's basic, to any of your Pokemon. Oh yeah, and then for 3 grass energy, 120 damage, heal 30 from Lurantis, so you use Flower Supply on turn 1, because of course Forest of Giant Plants allows you to evolve up on turn 1, attach the extra 2 to Lurantis, and then you just hit 120, heal 30 for the rest of the game. Pair it with Vileplume so your opponent is locked out of trainers. Oh yeah, well I should say items, that's what they're really called nowadays. And of course Vileplume also uses Forest of Giant Plants, and you have what could be the best deck in the format going forward. As a side note here, this is another video you should be getting at some point in the next week. And that means at number 1, and I've bumped him up while I'm recording this video, it is Umbreon GX. Although this is my second cheat. Because really here, we're looking at Eevee. Eevee has Energy Evolution. And Eevee here, well, we've seen this before, he's what makes Umbreon good. Now, it's the same as Eevees we've seen before. You attach a basic energy from your hand to Eevee, and you get to search for a Pokemon and evolve into that Pokemon that matches the energy type. So here, you attach a dark energy to Eevee on your first turn of the game, the turn you put Eevee into play, and you get to instantly evolve straight up into Umbreon and have Umbreon GX sitting there on turn 1 of the game. Umbreon GX is good, but he would not be anywhere near number 1 without Eevee. Although there are other evolutions, none of whom are as good as Umbreon. So what makes Umbreon so good? Well, I like the first attack, 30 damage, and you get to switch him to the bench. So turn 1, you evolve Eevee using a basic energy, hit for 30 damage, and then, I don't know, maybe you stick something like a Wobbuffet in the active to slow your opponent down. I don't know, could be fun. You could just put a blocker in the active. But it's the ability Shadow Bullet. For a dark and a double colourless, i.e. turn 1 you attach a dark and evolve, turn 2 you attach a double colourless, 90 to the active, 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Does this sound familiar yet? And that attack was pretty darn good for pretty darn long. Now, for a dark and a colourless, his GX attack will discard 2 energy attached to your opponent's Pokemon in play, and that is not an every turn amazing GX attack, but what it is a GX attack where if your opponent's got nothing and it's late in the game and they're running low of resources, this attack might literally leave them with no viable attackers and you win the game like that. Bonus points to Umbreon for being the best of the evolutions, but the combination of the Energy Evolution Eevee and essentially Night Spear with a half-decent first attack and a will win some games GX attack means that I feel slightly confident putting Umbreon GX as the best card from Sun and Moon. But make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, I like my top 10 list. I don't think any of my honourable mentions should be going into the top 10 list. But as for the order, I think you could happily mix it up and I wouldn't be able to argue too much with you. Now, you know the deal, ladies and gentlemen, there is a comment section, but as with all my top 10 lists, if you're going to argue, I need your reasons. Give me a full top 10 list, or if you're saying I think Lurantis should be number 1, then tell me why Umbreon isn't number 1. If you want to move Alolan Muck up, tell me who you're moving down in his place. Let's keep some list integrity going on. There are buttons to both like this video and subscribe to this channel. Could I politely request you use them both? You can follow me on Twitter @TheWassy, and the most important thing as always is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross and you've been watching PTCG Radio. Now get out to a pre-release because this set is awesome.